Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome all of you back to Ohio Exopolitics. I'm your host, Mark Snyder. Tonight we're going to talk about the Billy Meier case, and particularly about what Billy has to say about the creation. Billy Meier is an 80-year-old man who lives in northern Switzerland, about 45 minutes east of Zurich, in a tiny mountain village called Hinterschmid-Ruti, which is nestled among the pine forests in the mountains of northern Switzerland. He grew up even farther north in Switzerland in an area called Bulak. There are two mountain ranges there. One's called the Eichen-Moser, and the other one's called the Bruder Mountains. And there are beautiful meadows and large forests there. Billy's first extraterrestrial contact was a man named Svath, who came down in a very interesting pear-shaped craft, which landed in a field. And the first time Billy was taken up into the craft, he mentioned in the contact reports that it felt as if he was lifted up by ghostly hands. And he went into the ship and he met Svath. Interestingly, Billy had been seeing mental pictures of Svath's face as well as hearing his voice through a kind of telepathy that Svath had contacted him with. The reason that this extraterrestrial man was meeting with Billy is because these extraterrestrial humans were aware that his spirit form had been incarnating on the earth as a teacher, and that he had been the people that today we call Enoch, Elijah, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Emmanuel, and Muhammad. And in each one of these lifetimes, he taught a spiritual teaching which gave information about the laws of the universe and the purpose of our life and what happens when we die, and all these sorts of very important topics which had been obscured over the years by the religions who were not initially so good at writing this stuff down. A lot of the scribes wrote down things that the prophets said, and the prophets could not read. Many of them could not read. And so what got handed down to us over the years is a far cry from the original, at least from the perspective of the Meier people. The extraterrestrial man named Svath was here as a kind of mentor for the first 11 years of Billy's life. And one of the things that he taught Billy was who Billy had been in his previous lives. He taught Billy about reincarnation. He also taught Billy about something called the creation. And the creation is the universe that we live in. The creation also has an intelligence behind it, a universal consciousness. Now, this is very different from the religious term God. The religious term God refers to a heavenly Father who kind of is a father to us and punishes us and gives us guidance and that sort of thing, and then judges us. And the religions teach about heaven and hell and these sorts of things. The Meier information says that there is a universal intelligence, a universal consciousness that's behind the driving intelligence behind the evolution of our universe. And the structure of our universe is roughly egg-shaped, and it has 7 different layers that are concentric circles. And these concentric circles, they rotate in opposite directions. So they rotate against each other. And there's a core to our universe The fourth rotating layer is where all of the material in our universe is. It's where the galaxies and the stars and the planets are. Just before the material belt, the fourth belt, there's a belt called space. And positive energies come out of space into our material belt of our universe. The fifth concentric circle that's rotating is called the transformation belt. And negative energies come out of the transformation belt into the material belt. So when the negative energies out of the transformation belt hit the positive energies coming from space, they do this in our material belt, and they form a kind of energy which is the precursor to matter. The matter in our universe is then formed in the material belt. All the stars, all the galaxies, all the planets are in the material belt of our universe. And matter can only be about 45 billion years old before it breaks down. So our scientists look in the material belt and they see that the oldest matter is 45 billion years old. But the universe is much, much older. There's this entire structure of these layers of energies which are counter-rotating against one another. And they form what's called the creation, which was created 46 trillion years ago. Our entire universe was an idea of a higher intelligence called the creation, which was the energy that instigated what they call the Zohar or the Big Bang. So 46 trillion years ago, our universe was created along with a parallel universe. The parallel universe is called the Tao universe. So we have these two universes which exist side by side. And by the way, they both have people in them. Billy's second mentor came from the Tao universe. Her name is and was Asket. And she taught Billy from the time Billy was about 16 years old till he was 27. And she taught him about one of his previous incarnations as a prophet named Emmanuel. And they actually went back in time, and Billy and Asket and another fellow who tagged along got to meet Emmanuel, who was actually a previous incarnation of the spirit form that's now in Edward Albert Meier. So one of the strange things about a spirit form is that it can evidently be in two time frames at once. It can be, it's a very interesting thing that the same spirit form was in both these men, assuming that this whole time travel thing really took place, because Asket took him back in time. She also took Billy to the 13th century, where he commented on how beautiful the earth was and how luxurious the forests were and how the air was so thick and so fresh. She also took Billy below what's called the Giza Plateau, where Billy saw an ancient spacecraft and a group of people that are called the Giza intelligences. And these Giza intelligences erroneously introduced religions here on the earth, which interrupted our healthy, normal evolutionary path. So we here on the earth have had several disadvantages in relationship to our evolution. And one of the things that the Meier teaching does as it helps us get back on the path of evolution. And one of the ways to understand your role and your purpose in life is by understanding what the bigger picture is. So this universal intelligence, which exists in our universe, is not a father figure. It doesn't judge people. It doesn't condemn people. It's very neutral. It's neutral positive. It radiates love in a magnificent way if you're open to it. In fact, there's a few passages I like to quote in one of Billy's writings that isn't completely translated into English yet, but it goes. Some of them go like this. It says, "Love is the highest principle in all creation, and through it everything exists in absolute logic. Every tiny plant and every tiny animal fulfills its purpose in love. Love will forever be the purpose of our existence. The incredible love of creation connects all life because in all life that love lies hidden. In fact, the incredible splendor of nature is the visible expression of the love of creation, and creation radiates love. But those who've turned off their senses will no longer empfinden or feel the radiating love of creation. And to them, the world is a place of drudgery. And that's what happens when we live outside the law of love. Love is, again, the highest principle in all creation. And when Billy was a very, very young boy, he crawled out a lower window in his bedroom. He was about 4 years old. He sat down on a bench and he looked up at the starry sky and he said, "My life is made out of the love of creation." And he saw the light which the stars emitted, but he recognized that there was an invisible light that he knew was the love of creation. And he felt himself longing for the faraway worlds and distant places. And let me read a little bit more about love, and this comes from something called Love Letter 27. It says, "No life is able to exist without love and without the light of truth. However, no light is able to exist without love and truth, and no truth is able to exist without light and love. True love is true being, and it is the everlasting warmth from the center of creation, which is described as true existence. Love is the highest principle of creation, and through it, everything exists in absolute logic. The love of creation is everywhere, because without it, nothing at all would be able to exist. The individual should be aware that he exists only through the love of creation, that he carries this love also within himself. Creation created everything in love and logic, and put the same love in all of its creatures, so that life itself is love." And Billy's third contact, we talked about Semyase and Asket, but his third contact was a woman named Semyase. And she spoke this way. In beautiful poetic terms, she said, "Love and wisdom go together, and the creation and its laws are love and wisdom at the same time." And she mentioned that every person has within them a spirit form that records everything that we do, every impulsation, every thought. It is the wonder of all wonders, she called it. She said it never sleeps and it never dies. And it's the bearer of the creative realm, she called it. Now, this spirit form that exists in the middle of our brains is called a spirit form, a Geist form in the German. And for operationally speaking, it's a fragment of this universal consciousness. It resides in an area of your middle brain called the superior colliculus. And it is the center of your spiritual consciousness. And there is something related to it called the Gemut. And the Gemut controls the thoughts and the feelings of the spiritual consciousness. Nothing can harm the spirit form, nothing in the material realm. It will never become angry, it will never have a nervous breakdown. Your spirit form is the driving force behind your innermost self. And your innermost self is the part of you which is influenced by your spirit form. You also have an inner self, which is mostly related to your material consciousness. You have a material consciousness, and the psyche is the controlling factor of your material consciousness. And the material consciousness is who you are in this lifetime. It's your subconscious, unconscious mind. It's your conscious mind. It's your personality. It's who you are in this lifetime. But deep within you, in your innermost self, is the impulses that come from your spirit. And your spirit form is very ancient. Even young human spirit forms on the earth, most of them are 4 million years old. So you've been incarnating into a human body, most likely, for 4 million years. Now, your previous lives are generally blocked at this level of our evolution, so we don't have the confusion of trying to contemplate all of these lifetimes. But this should give you a great confidence, because you don't have to fear death, because death is just a passage into the world of pure spirit. So when you die, the spirit form comes out of the body, it leaves the center of your brain, and it takes with it the consciousness from the previous life, and it goes into kind of an energy band around our planet. And every spirit form has what's called a overall consciousness block in the spirit realm. And that's kind of a work area where the spirit form will go back over all these previous life experiences, and it will create what are called essences. So the essence of what you learned about logic, and the essence of what you learned about love, and the essence of what you understand about discipline, and the essence of what you learned about logic, and the essence of what you learned about kindness and life and freedom. And these values, these essences, are then absorbed by your spirit form, and your spirit form creates a new personality and a new subconscious, and it takes these essences and it programs them into your subconscious, into the new subconscious. Remember, we're in the spirit realm now. I'm describing what's going on in the spirit realm in between lives. So your spirit form creates a new subconscious. It programs it with the essence of what you learned in your previous life, your previous lives total. And then it creates your new conscious mind, your new personality, your new unconscious. And then nature, the creation, pulls the spirit form and the new consciousness into the body of a fetus that's 21 days old. And that's when life enters the fetus. and the heart starts to beat, and the spirit energy goes throughout the whole body of the child. And the child actually has sometimes some very deep thoughts, even in the womb, some very, very profound thoughts. And eventually that child is born, and that conscious mind has to relearn everything. It has to learn how to go to the restroom again. It has to learn how to talk again. But the advantage it has this lifetime over the previous lifetime is it has stored in its subconscious all those essences of what it learned. And the subconscious will kind of impulse or signal the conscious mind to help its evolution to speed up. So the conscious mind will kind of say, oh, okay, I understand, I remember, okay, I know I should be doing this, and I got a feeling I shouldn't be doing that. And not only that, you will get impulses or signals, not only from your subconscious, but from your spirit form. It will give you impulses and hunches, and the storage banks of the universe will give you impulses and hunches. And these signals that come from the storage banks are energies that are archived from your previous lives. And there are energetic storage banks that exist around the planet, around the solar system, around the galaxy, and around the universe. And if you're thinking with the right kind of frame of mind, you can be sensitive to these impulses. And Billy, as a very, very young boy, was very sensitive to these impulses. And he heard himself say things that were astonishing to him. Like he felt this longing for the faraway worlds and distant places. And he knew at 4 years old what his life purpose was. So Billy had a very, very interesting life, very strange in some ways, of course. So he met with Svath for about 11 years. Svath died and told him that he was going to get another mentor, a woman from the Tao universe that we were talking about. Now, Asket was her name, and her people were called the Timmers. And the Timmers left our universe about 3,000 years ago. They developed a technology to pass through the universe barrier without damaging the universe that they were in, and not without damaging their ship. And they traveled all the way to the material belt of this Tao universe, where they found stars and planets, and they settled. And one of the differences between the Tao universe and our universe is these habitable planets are much, much closer together. And the material belt of our universe has, and I assume the same is true for the Tao universe, has what they call 7 different space-time configurations, 7 different dimensions. And each dimension is similar to the other, but kind of a variation on it. For example, there's a Cirrus system in our dimension. There's a Cirrus system in the dimension that the Pleiaren live in. The Pleiaren live some 80 light years beyond our Pleiades in a different space-time configuration. And they live on a world called Era. And Era is very, very similar to the Earth, except it's been taken very, very, very good care of. And it still has those lush green forests everywhere on the planet. It has a deep, rich atmosphere that's incredibly thick with lots of oxygen. And the human population is kept in check so that these forests can thrive everywhere. And the flora and the fauna the life is tremendous on Era, the way it has been on the earth and the way it should be again. See, we're living in a very, very dangerous time because we don't understand what the creation is. Life has become primarily a heavy, tough battle because people have turned away from creation and they have lost the knowledge of its existence. However, in undiminished size, the creation lets its love become apparent. Nevertheless, through its creations. You see, creation is teaching us about love. Remember, every tiny plant and every tiny animal fulfills its purpose in love. So the kitten and the puppy teaches you about love. And if you learn to observe nature, nature will also teach you about love. And there's also a harshness to nature because its creation is not perfect. Creation is evolving, just like we're evolving. The person must only be willing to see and recognize this love, and he will begin to feel it. If he opens to the love of creation and he allows it to flow into himself, he becomes filled with respectful gratitude and great joy. Each smallest plant, each ever so tiny animal, was created in love by creation, each existing according to the same law of love. Now, one thing, when it said, when you open yourself to the love of creation, you'll become filled with gratitude and joy. One of the things that came to my thought processes is concepts from the Might of Thoughts, which is one of Billy's books. It's called Macht der Gedanken. And it's a book that teaches us to think neutral positive. Remember when I was talking about creation? And the positive energies come from the earth space, and the negative energies come from the transformation belt, and they form up in the material belt, and they eventually create energies which form matter. Well, the neutral, the negative and the positive, are two things that belong together. And what we're called to do is to have harmony in our thinking. That means we're neutral, just a little neutral positive. And harmony and enthusiasm are related together. And the harmony in the consciousness seems to flow like a stream, which is extremely pleasant when you can get harmony in your consciousness. And the 7 characteristics, I call these the 7 characteristics. They're just principles that I pulled out of the Might of Thoughts books. Important things to tell yourself. I am confident. I am optimistic. I am cheerful. I am relaxed. I am enthusiastic. I am thankful. I am in harmony. And I found that by saying these things out loud to myself, I can break the flow of unhealthy thinking. And it's good to start with the idea of confidence. I think a lot of problematic thinking really occurs because of our lack of confidence. And confidence is a feeling, it's a belief that you can rely on yourself. It's a trust in yourself. I think of confidence in terms that I know I can rely on myself. Now, if you don't have a lot of confidence in yourself, you need to develop confidence in yourself. And one of the reasons you need to have confidence is because you have this fragment of creation that's inside you. And that means you have all sorts of creativity within inside you. So whatever problem you're facing, you can face it with that creativity. The other thing that you must remember is the might of your own thoughts. It is the nature of thoughts that by their might alone, every conceivable thing can be brought into fruition. So your good thoughts lead to good feelings, and good feelings lead to good habits, and good habits lead to good circumstances in your life. So you are the master of your own destiny. You can create good circumstances in your life, and optimism is one of these thought characteristics that will attract people. Everybody likes an optimist. So if you can foster optimism and confidence, that will help people deal with their own stress. And you don't have to be a clown to be optimistic. Optimism is constructive thinking. And constructive thinking generates a calmness. It will generate a calmness in you and a calmness in others. And on the other hand, if you prefer to have negative thoughts, one of the things that the Might of Thoughts books teaches us is that whoever allows himself to think negative thoughts will soon be controlled by them. And whatever you think, you will make real. And what you think about yourself, you will become. There is no limit to your success. You are the master of your own destiny. And your life never ends in tyranny. Your life never ends in the gutter because of tyranny. If you're in the gutter, you have to take responsibility. You have something to do with getting into the gutter. And it might only be your unconscious thoughts. You know, we have unconscious thoughts, unconscious feelings. And emotions can create thoughts and feelings. Emotions are very reflexive. Kind of like when the doctor hits that knee and you kick and you don't even mean to do it. Emotions are spontaneous manifestations. They're reflexive. Our unconscious state determines many of our feelings. And drugs can also trigger unconscious perceptions. So you should never only allow positive. You have to allow negative. You have to allow a kind of balance things because, again, negative and positive are two powers which belong together. They work together, and they shouldn't be separated. If the human being has the audacity to separate and think only in negative terms, he's going to have big problems. And if you think only in positive terms, you will also have big problems. You'll get very out of control of the good human nature. Many positive thinkers have killed themselves because they think only positive, which creates a horrible imbalance in the spirit. You have to use both powers. The negative and the positive. That creates a balance. A positive or a negative imbalance means for your psyche that it's degenerating. And you can degenerate negatively or positively. Neutral positive balance means that the psyche has an equilibrium, which has some negative and positive. There's a harmony. We're looking for harmony. Remember, I am confident, I am optimistic, I'm relaxed, I'm cheerful, I'm thankful, I'm enthusiastic. I am in harmony. That's what we're shooting for. This is part of the spiritual teachings. Harmony. There's another great book that Billy has. It's called it's called The Way to Live. The Way to Live talks about, we've been talking about the law of harmony, which is creational law, If your thoughts are in harmony, your life will be in harmony. If your thoughts are out of harmony, then you have a disharmony in your life. That's the law of harmony. The other law we were talking about is the law of love. These are creational natural laws. Live and help live as much as you can. Help the flora, help the fauna, help other people if you can. I mean, there are going to be times when you lose your temper. There are going to be times when you behave badly. Sometimes that happens when emotions come busting out at unfortunate times. That doesn't mean you have to think less of yourself, because we are on this earth to learn. Striving is the other creational natural law that is critical. Striving means delectation or satisfaction in an always fulfilling form. And let me tell you, without striving, there is no life. Without striving, you will not have happiness. It's one of the fundamental laws of the universe. And these are one of these laws. I like to take regular rest periods between my striving, but all I pretty much do, if I fall out of striving and I just become lazy, let's say, and I'm not doing anything, I'm not focusing on anything, I can feel myself, you kind of lose your momentum. See, enthusiasm produces a flow in your life. So if you're thinking correctly, you'll have enthusiasm, you'll have this harmony. And this will fuel your striving. Now, if something interrupts your thinking, you see how these creational natural laws work together. The law of harmony feeds into the law of striving. And if you have no harmony in your soul, try to love someone. It doesn't work out very well, but let me continue here. To be without striving means unwillingness and affliction. You go into affliction, it's because you have an inhibited striving. What I mean is, we're really called to work. We're really called to work. We have to take regular rests. Don't allow yourself to get out of neutral positive. But really, I mean, look at Billy, 50 books he's written, I guess. I know one time he said 40. I guess it's up to 50 now. And these are not just little romantic novels or something. I mean, I'm almost done with Might Have Thoughts. This is my 6th time, I believe, through it. These books you can read forever. There's so much information in them. If you have inhibited striving in your life, what usually happens is you don't realize why you're depressed or why you're unhappy. Well, and you may have to go through, I think we have these periods of life where we have to go through tremendous striving, lots of work, almost where you think you can't even do this much. You know, you feel like I just can't do anymore. But you'll be driven onward. Let me continue here. But inhibited striving and inhibited life bring inhibited evolution and stagnation, hopelessness, grief, and confusion. If you have hopelessness, grief, and confusion entering in your life right now, my advice to you, man, is to get to work on anything and everything that comes across your mind, even if it's washing the outside of your house or sweeping your garage floor. Get to work. Because if you don't, you'll have irrationality, you'll have joylessness, you'll have cognitionlessness, unpeace, disharmony. Your love life will break down. You'll have resentment. And then you'll go into lies and self-deceit. And you'll have a great reluctance for life. So the more happiness and harmony that you have, it will come because of striving. So what you've learned in the show today are the keys to happiness. Neutral positive thinking, not negative, not too positive, a little bit positive. Hard work, continual focus, continual work, and love. Now, if you have these three things, you will maintain happiness in your life. You'll have challenges, you'll have difficulties, but these are the laws of the universe related to happiness. And if you can pass this information on to your friends, then maybe we'll stop overpopulating the earth. Maybe we'll stop warring. Maybe we'll stop destroying the environment. Depending on the degree of the strength of striving of any single vision, and we'll talk about what that means again, it will assert itself in the world and prevail, or it will fall, shatter, waste away, and come to an end and vanish. Now, human beings, cats, dogs, horses, all the higher animals are Wesen. That means we have a personality. Well, the topic of the show today was the creation. Well, the creation's different. It radiates love. It has this super intelligence to build universes. But it really doesn't have a personality. And because it's a Wesenheiten, its free will doesn't determine how its evolution goes. You see, the evolution of our universe occurs according to a schedule that things change at a certain time. For example, the universe that we're in right now is 46 trillion years old. It's been expanding for 46 trillion years. While it expands, it creates life forms. It creates spirit forms, human spirit forms. It creates spirit forms for the animals and for the plants. It will expand up to about 155 trillion years, some amount of additional billion years on top of that. But about roughly 155 trillion years, it stops its expansion phase. It has no, every creation does this, my understanding is, because of it being a Wesenheiten. With human beings as Wesen, our free will determines the rate of our evolution. So some people spend 40 million years evolving in a completely physical body. Others spend up to 60 million years evolving in a physical body. Now, there are 7 evolutionary steps for human beings, just like there are 7 layers in our universe. And we evolve through these 7 evolutionary steps. Well, the creation, it evolves automatically. Where we evolve according to our own free will. The way I look at the creation, it's not so much like a Heavenly Father. It's closer to the sun. It's closer to maybe an ocean. This super intelligence, it radiates love, just like the sun radiates light and heat. It radiates love, but it's neutral. All the responsibility is on you. Now, that doesn't mean you don't have some forms of help. From your spirit form, you have help. From your spirit form, you have help. From your previous life information, you have help. From the storage banks, you have help. From these books, you have help. You're not alone, but you are responsible for your evolution. And the wonderful thing is, your thoughts, the nature of your thoughts is such that they have such an incredible might associated to them that every conceivable thing that you think you can bring into fruition. The might of the thoughts is such that you can control the circumstances in your life, even if you're in a really bad state right now, work, first of all, on controlling your thoughts. Right now, you may be plagued by inner conflicts. These inner conflicts can senselessly squander your energies. And when your energies are squandered, you may lose your initiative. And you may have great trouble even getting the smallest successes. Look within yourself, your inner self. Remember, we have our innermost self, and then we have our inner self. Your innermost self is fine, but it's the inner self that may be struggling. Your inner self may have become tired of yourself. You may be on a dangerous abyss of despair. You may become bored with your life. You may get on your own nerves. You may feel dried out and empty. You can take control of your life and your thoughts. You can gain initiative if you tell yourself, I'm confident, I'm optimistic, I'm cheerful, I'm relaxed, I'm thankful, I'm enthusiastic, I'm in harmony. You can become a satisfied human being. Don't allow yourself to fall into unsatisfaction, because unsatisfaction can kill all your initiative. Remember, you have the power to control your own life. Now, unfortunately, people have become very involved in religion today. And religions came in many ways by these extraterrestrial visitors that we had in the ancient past that came to the earth, these Giza intelligences, and that was after the fall of Atlantis and Lemuria, and they took advantage of the people of the earth who were struggling to climb up out of the abyss of nearly a destroyed planet. So we have to remember that, the book of OM is very interesting. It's another one of Billy's books. Hasn't been completely translated into English yet. Someone is working on that particular project. And the book of OM is described this way. This is the book of the laws and directives of creation, laid out and explained with understandable words. This is the book of knowledge of the creational laws and directives. And this is a little bit about what we've been talking about tonight. The laws of creation, the law of harmony in your thinking, the law of evolutive striving, the law of love, the law of reincarnation. Now, in the past, there were gods with a small g on the earth. The Meier information argue that Jehovah of the Old Testament was one of these gods with a small g. These men were what the Meier information calls Ishwishes. These were kings of wisdom, but many times not in the sense of the spiritual life. Let me read a little bit here from the Book of OM. A canon is also devoted to clarifications about how God is not creation, and how these gods were people who came from the stars and misrepresented themselves as creators. The OM, the Omphale Murado, explains the relationship between the Ishwish and the prophet, the nature and the role of the prophet, and its relationship to earthly humanity. The OM is a very powerful book because it frees us from the tyranny of our past. See, I said in the beginning of the show, we have a couple big things against us. One of the things is that extraterrestrials were here in the past, and they posed as gods and creators, and they created a kind of a scar on humanity's consciousness. So we have a big misunderstanding about the creational energies, the creational intelligence, and it's been blurred together with this anthropomorphic idea of a human being with a long white beard. This is not the case. The intelligence behind our universe has no personality. It radiates love, which is something that's hard for us to understand. Now, this book, the OM, the Om in Sanskrit, is an ancient word that's derived from the old Lyrian language, which has long since been lost on the earth. The actual meaning of the acronym OM is disclosed when the full significance of both letters are revealed by an explanation of the two words. Remember I said Om Fa and Murado, the OM. And there's a kind of tonal harmony produced by the two, Om Fa and Murado. OM is the traditional form. The ancient Lyrians referred to their writings about the truth. The Book of Truth also as the OM, Life's Navel, or the Navel of Life. The OM incorporates all the creational teachings and the teachings of wisdom. So perhaps maybe I'll read a little bit from the OM here in the closing minutes of the show here. In the beginning was the egg form of creation, of the creation spiral, brought forth through the idea of the original creation. The creation spiral, the original form, tiny and only the size of a flea. But in the spiral rotated and pulsed the spirit energy form of the emerging creation, forceful and willed towards expanding. The energy form grew and became a bald power, exploding in a blazing lightning fire, a Zohar between the countless universes and absolute space. The newly and for the last time given, unfalsified form of the OM text should bring the earth human peace, stillness, love, truth, knowledge, logic, wisdom. You know, the thing of it is, Billy's writings are only really 4 books or 5 books that have been translated yet. We have just a very small, but I think we've got a lot of the important ones translated. The Way to Live, The Art zu Leben, a book called The Psyche, and The Might of Thoughts, as well as The Goblet of Truth. These are very important books. Important books to understand, and I think I'll read a bit from The Psyche. This is a book I had to read the first 20 or 30 pages at least a dozen times to really get these concepts cemented in my mind. And remember, there are 2 things in our consciousness. We have a material consciousness. We have a spiritual consciousness. And the psyche controls the material consciousness, something called the Gemut, controls the spiritual consciousness. I believe creation has a gamut as well, which is an amazing thing to think about. How much, in many ways, the human being is like, in some aspects, similar to the gamut. And there's something that I'm looking for here about the gamut I want to share with you. And this deals with the word supernatural. And when you're dealing with supernatural, what we're dealing with is what's called the fine fluidal energies. And we have, through the gamut, the ability to use these fine fluidal energies. Let me read here about the gamut. The gamut is referred to as the spiritual block and factor which within the spirit body of a life form, in this case the human being, regulates and looks after the spirit consciousness-based feelings and the spirit consciousness-based thoughts. So your spirit form does have thoughts and feelings, but your spirit form at this level of your evolution is not completely conscious. Your spirit form really can't survive and grow without a material consciousness and a body. And in the spirit realm, it's preparing for its re-entry into a body. It needs the material body in order to evolve. But contrary to the psyche, the gamut of the spirit realm cannot be influenced by negative powers. So your spirit is invulnerable. It cannot be harmed by anything in the material realm. Likewise, the gamut cannot either. The gamut always has an equalized form of positive and negative. The gamut always exhibits this harmony that we're talking about. So the goal in life is to have the inner self, which is your material consciousness, be more like the innermost self, which is your spiritual consciousness. Your material consciousness can create negative and positive, and also neutral positive. The spirit consciousness operates only in a form of equalizedness, in a neutral positive, harmoniously applied form. The gamut, it has no direct connection to the material body. So the gamut is part of this spiritual consciousness, your innermost self. And when the lady speaks, it always kind of startles me, even though I know it's coming. Well, that's about the end of the show, folks. Hopefully this has given you some food for thought for the coming week, and hope you've all had a good weekend. I know I have. You've been listening to Ohio Exopolitics. I'm your host, Mark Snyder. Get into the Meier material and learn about the might of your own thoughts.